Welcome to another episode of Price Targets with your host Bitcoin Jack. Welcome back. It's Monday, and I think we're very close to an inflection point on both the S&P 500 equities and Bitcoin. I want to talk about it, and there's basically three plays for Bitcoin that I'm willing to consider and play. I'll walk you through that. I do not exactly know what's going on with the tariffs. I'm just gonna try and focus on what I'm seeing on the chart. Um, and I want to go to the dollar and treasuries as well, really shortly, to see. There's basically two trades there where I want to explain what I'm seeing and why I think they are fundamentally getting mispriced at this very moment. So, without further ado, I want to first say big shout out to Backpack Exchange. They're sponsoring this content and they have built an awesome exchange. I'm currently farming points and I need to get going because last week wasn't that great. Every week there's points. We don't really know what exactly they will be able to redeem for, and we also don't really know like what we're getting points for. It changes every week. So apparently I did very poor last week and okay like in the weeks before. Um, and I assume that later down the line we're gonna get like airdrops. And maybe there might be a token that's purely speculative, but it makes sense maybe if there eventually becomes like if we eventually get a token. Anyways, I'm gonna be farming these, and I kind of know slash feel that will be well rewarded for it. Um, if currently not available in your jurisdiction, I expect that to hit soon. So stay tuned, and if you want to join, please use my referral link. It's gonna be able to keep this content going. Without further ado, we're gonna now jump into Bitcoin. Um, maybe I want to start with yes, because this is what we discussed last week. Last week we said, okay, well, we have this weird Monday range here, Monday low, Monday high from a week ago, and we basically said that I kind of expect going forward that we're gonna, you know, touch the high and then come down to sweep the lows and then rally again into this giant block of resistance where we've seen a lot more volume traded. If you look at this, you'd expect there a lot more volume to have traded here based on the volatility, but we really haven't. So it kind of suggests that the market is really fragile and there's a lot of pain going on underneath. Um, So we're sweeping the highs right now. Um, my assumption here is that we've had the 5430 line, which was based on the S&P 500 index. So we should probably put this slightly higher because there usually is a premium on the future. So let's say right around here. Um, in my opinion, we could trade above this level a little bit, like 5.4 to 5,500, but not a long time. And I think it's resistance. It's probably going to trade down into these lows and then rally again. There's going to be a few data points towards the end of April that are probably gonna, it's probably gonna push us down beyond like half of the midway of the month, which is right now. So we assume that we can see that Bitcoin is currently slightly stronger on the short time frames, but I kind of do expect that Bitcoin will follow the S&P 500 down if that goes down. So Bitcoin, I think so. There's a probability that this breaks out, right? There's a downtrend. We tap, 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 tap it. We still keep going down. In the case of it breaking out, I don't want to be long into the resistance, right? But if it breaks out, it probably goes up here and then corrects back down in here, and then it continues higher. So the long play for me would be the second you take out these highs, it's probably going to deviate off these highs here and then come back down into the support. Note the level of November 2024. This is the initial supply where Bitcoin started to stagnate, and then you had distribution above this block here specifically, between 84 and 90,000. Price went above it and now starts to trade below it. So it's trying to accept below the level, and right now it's trying to reclaim it. There's probably room if this breaks out of the downtrend into 90,000 and then come back into like 85, long 85 into towards 100, right? So that's scenario one. I don't want to be long into the resistance, but if it breaks out, maybe you can go onto the low time frame and find like a trigger to get above like 80, 88, 89 towards 90, 91. And then obviously I want to be long if it comes dipping down. The other scenario, which I think is more likely than the scenario I just discussed, is price trades back into the low that we swept here. Maybe it dips down a little bit and then starts to go higher. So that's definitely a level to consider, which is around 77. I think that's our play. And then there's scenario 3, which kind of, it's gonna suck if it happens, because price gets down here and you're like, okay, well, that's a good point to long, and then bam, it kind of smashes into the level here. So to compare the 77 long play, it's very much as if you longed 53,000 Bitcoin back in September 2024. And losing the level here is basically losing. If you trade into 64, it's basically because we lose the long-term trend that's trading off here. And then it starts to consolidate, and then we get like this range that I discussed on Twitter before. We get this this range, in my opinion, that's gonna last all summer. Maybe like super boring crap, maybe very volatile up and down. I probably think that if this happens, if you get to 64, 66, it gets a bit slow throughout summer, and then Q4 could become like this turnaround where we slowly go up back to 100. So you get this very long, drawn out cup into like maybe new all-time highs by the end of the year. I'm not really sure. But that's the 3 scenarios I'm eyeing here for Bitcoin. These are the fractals that we discussed earlier in the previous videos. And I mean, all of them, if you take like the aggregate of these, they seem pretty spot on, and seems like we're kind of following orange right now. So yeah, my opinion remains here that we're gonna trade down at least to 77, and there's a good chance we're gonna trade to 66, 64, that kind of region. Yeah, so about alts, my conviction pretty much was that we had to kind of bottom out in March for alts to to really see something going. And I think in the current environment, it's not necessarily great. So um, when it comes to like Ethereum and stuff, I think there's a really good chance it starts to kind of bottom out, and at any point in time, ETH could see some kind of recovery, counter trend rally. Um, but it's still very much a difficult environment to be long alts. That's I have the exposure, and I'm trying to trade around it with hedges on BTC and the S&P 500, but it's not easy. So we'll see how how that goes. There's a good chance that this is going to start forming a range. Maybe we trade as low as here by August. Don't specifically have any actionable trade setups there. Um, this is my long-term model for Bitcoin price, and I think that we need to come down and test the blue line here, maybe dip above or below it before we see continuation upwards. So everything I just said regarding this model gets invalidated if Bitcoin starts to trade above this downtrend and comes down and retests the 70, like the 84, 85 level, but 85,000, the wick here is pretty much a resistance right now. And then the other thing that I'm pretty, well, that I'm playing is, if you look at the dollar, this over under pattern, it repeats a lot of times on very different time frames, many different time frames, and sweeping lows on the dollar and highs on the dollar has been kind of a fruitful strategy. Fundamentally, I think that treasuries and the dollar are currently getting mispriced because of all the tension with the tariffs and whatever is going on the global, like political and financial scene, where you have financial tooling that has built up all these kind of positions that are currently getting unwound. And if someone starts to unwind these basis trades and all other kinds of financial tooling, it it sets off a cascade and an effect that goes counter what's fundamentally logical. And there's a the market essentially could be right or wrong about, for example, if the S&P 500 is bearish, and it would be logical to be long treasuries, right? And there should be demand for dollars as debt gets unwound and positions get unwound, and people want to get out of equities into something safer. At this very moment, it seems that the the whole scene is kind of trying to de-risk, and the dollar is getting sold off and treasuries are getting sold. The question is whether that's fundamentally correct or whether that shouldn't be the case. And my thought here is that it's probably getting overextended. I don't think that the euro is fundamentally stronger than the dollar. So temporary phenomenon, and we have a setup here that I, wouldn't mind playing. So I've swapped all my euros except for my checkings account and for dollars. So that's one thing. And then the other thing, let's see. So long-term treasuries are selling off, and I mean the world's in a lot of trouble when this actually manages to go a lot lower. Imagine all these banks that were quote unquote in trouble last year because they had so many losses on their balance sheets, unrealized losses. Those unrealized losses are still there for the larger part, and they were pretty bad. But considering, like, if you take time they could probably recover from it. But if this goes a lot lower, those losses will probably get forced to be realized, which probably means that a bank is gonna fall. Um, so it's a usually important chart to follow. You can look at the TLT too if you want, but um, if this pattern continues, essentially this pattern, there's going to be a world of pain, and liquidity is just going to be gone. Could be an environment that's really good for Bitcoin, but I mean that would be just mental to go through this if you pretty much continue to do this, because that is going to put you below par. 100 is par. Basically means that everyone lost so much money on treasuries, and I can't believe that if this happens, that no bank will fall. So I think that's a few things to pay attention to. There's not much to update in terms of Ethereum. It's performing very poorly, but I'm trading around it. Yeah, I mean it's a tough environment out there, and I'd say that Bitcoin is now the main thing to focus on. If it can get bullish, then we get into the nitty gritty of you know um, a bunch of altcoins. So I really want to be able to kind of give more guidance here, but it's I think that's it for me, and I hope to catch you guys next week. If this content is useful to you and you're looking for a new venue to trade, please consider Backpack. Use my referral link, and I'll catch you guys next week. Cheers.